Coming back on, sir.
Hey, I think it's Marty Stewart that covered "Cry, Cry, Cry" that you're talking about.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah. It's
Pretty sure.
definitely slower. This was more up tempo and just more fun, So,
Well, it's Johnny Cash, man.
yeah, exactly. Right, an Arkansas legend, Arkansas tradition. Rick, I appreciate you coming on, especially on Johnny Cash Friday. And we always normally used to do these conversations, but we would do them recorded and we'd play them later in the day when we were on in the afternoon. And now we're live. Things have kind of worked out a little bit better, and so I'm really excited to have you on. How are things going in D.C. right now?
Oh, well, it's slow progress. I think the really important thing to point to is the tax reform package and the tax cuts and how those are, manifesting, an improved economy right before our eyes. I know that people have been, bringing home more money in their paycheck. It's going to take a little bit of, another year before we can actually file our taxes on this new code. So as we approach tax day, we've kind of got to manage expectations on what you'll expect in your return. But on a day-to-day basis, it's looking so much better as a result of these the tax reform. And the evidence of that is you can see companies all over the country that are putting more into their wage and compensation packages and investing in their employees, expanding their businesses, hiring new employees. So I think it's doing what it was designed to do. And there are economists that are expecting sustained 4% growth over the course of this year. And so I think it's something to be pleased with. And it's easy to focus on, the debates that are taking place right now with regard to immigration and things like that. And you see that has really not moved forward very effectively in the Senate. But, let's try to, find some good things to point out where we've made some progress and are delivering some results.
Yeah, and on the tax thing, you don't file till next year, but you've got businesses that are going to start making quarterly payments, and those estimates are going to be different, and so that's going to be more money to hopefully invest or pay more employees or hire more people or that sort of thing. So that's really good. I want to ask you about Donald Trump's State of the Union speech. I thought it was really powerful. There were so many great moments in it, and then you mentioned immigration. When he got to the immigration point, he gave the Democrats, I mean, everything that they wanted, and I kind of feel like the Democrats have said they rejected it because they would rather still have a victim and oppressor so that they can maintain power. That's kind of my take on this. But what was your thought about the State of the Union address and this immigration proposal that he gave?
Well, I think, high marks on overall on, the substantive points in the State of the Union. I agree with you. I think that immigration is an issue because they want to make it an issue and keep it an issue. And I think that's a legitimate question. Why can't you take yes for an answer? I think the president was very clear in what he was willing to do. And at the same time, we have a responsibility to secure this nation. I'm okay with addressing DACA in the context of the points laid out by the president. I'm okay with that. And I've said that publicly. I've said it privately. I understand the concerns of young people who were brought here, not knowing at all where they were being taken, and they end up here in the United States and find this it's the only place they've ever known. I get it. All right, that's fine. But it doesn't mean that we have to all of a sudden now circumvent the law. And it also doesn't mean that we should not provide security to the rest of the United States and American citizens. I mean, we have a responsibility to address the primary concern, and that is to secure this nation. And if we can't do that, then we'll be, you issue some sort of a path forward for DACA designees, and we'll be back in this same situation in 5 years. 10 years. We don't know how long it will take, but we'll be wrestling with this again, and we don't need to do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have historical precedent, Ronald Reagan, amnesty and then secure the border later, and we're right here in the problem. It's a real problem. So you definitely have to.
There's
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, here we are, folks. Thanks so much for being with us. I'm pulling up my Facebook live feed as we speak. Good morning, everybody out there listening. Good morning, everybody across great radio stations across Arkansas. We appreciate every single one of you. And you have found, if this is your first time, we get new listeners, I'm told, a lot. If this is your first time listening to the program, you have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to actually see limited government policies enacted, conservative ideas enacted, not just talked about on the campaign trail and then the politicians come back to us and they tell us that they are now enlightened because they've spoken with this person who's been down there for a while, or this lobbyist, or the governor, or whatever, and now they see things differently. We don't buy that. We actually believe these ideas will work, and they will give us more freedom and a quantified government that does specific tasks, specific things, and doesn't do things that most of us don't want the government to be doing, right? Case in point, here's just a boilerplate example of that would be roads. I mean, I was driving down to the Marble Palace yesterday, and there were some terrible roads. I was on 67, and there were some spots that were just awful. Of course, the rain didn't help because it was basically a downpour the entire day. And I thought to myself, it's very convenient, or it would be very easy for me to just say, gosh, I want good roads. I guess I should go along with the governor's plan and raise our taxes on gasoline at the wholesale level. That will eventually trickle down and will get passed on to the consumers at the pump. And we'll have good roads then, right? We'll have good roads then. No, we won't. Because they're going to mismanage the money, or these people think in decades. This is just an incremental increase. We're going to have more money at some point. And instead, I thought of this as I'm going over a chug hole, as Dan Douglas would say. Instead of talking about chug holes and mysterious men that apparently. Mysterious voices that can be heard randomly at urinals. Instead of that, I thought, I'm already giving the government a lot of my money to do the things that they're not doing. I'm already giving the government a ton of money to pay for these roads. So, no, I don't want to give them any more money. But I think we can all agree we all like roads. We all like to take advantage of it. We all like getting our goods to market and things like that. But we don't all agree on whether spending millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, if you combine the federal give on Medicaid expansion, we're talking about $2 billion. We don't all agree on that. And matter of fact, it has divided this state, verily. And that is why, in order to spend money on a project like this, in order to spend money on Arkansas Works, you have to have 75% approval in both houses in a fiscal session. That is why the bar is so high, because the principle is, if we're going to do something and spend the people's money on it, we need to make sure that we have a vast majority, a very solid majority of the people's representatives agree, yes, we're going to spend everyone's money on this goal. The government is going to do X because 75% of both chambers say yes. And that's why it's very probable that the funding for Arkansas Works could get held up or whatever. Now, it probably won't. There'll probably be some people that cave, or they'll find a way around it. They'll, life will find a way, as they say in Jurassic Park. But I just wanted to make that point. If you're upset because of roads in Arkansas, I just want you to know it's because they've mismanaged your money. It's not because they haven't taken enough of it yet. Let me say that again. If you're upset on roads, this is something that most everybody agrees with. Okay, we would like our taxpayer dollars to go to roads, whether we're paying the gasoline tax or of course we pay a federal excess tax on tires. Now we pay for Zika insurance because Asa raised your tire taxes and he created a new tax on tires. But that doesn't even go to roads. That goes to fund a cradle-to-grave tire tracking system. So he grew government in a completely new way and raised your taxes, by the way. But that didn't even go to roads. We got to have another tax increase for that he supports. So, anyway, just wanted you to know it's not because they haven't taken enough money yet. No, it's because they've mismanaged your money, and we have priorities that are not the priorities of, I believe, a majority of Arkansans. Obamacare was not supported by a majority of Arkansans. Okay, if you think it was, I guess you're looking at, I don't know, some skewed poll that probably is the same people that tell you that Asa Hutchinson's the third most popular governor in the country. Yeah. All right. So, phone number 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. There's actually a ton of news today. I went down to the Marble Palace. Joe and I went to the Marble Palace yesterday. Joe, it was your first time at the seat of corruption. I'm sorry, the seat of government here in Arkansas. What were your thoughts about the Marble Palace?
It's overly extravagant.
Yeah, did you feel like you were somebody special while you were there?
I just felt, I don't know. When we went to the elevator was a really common.
Elevator's really slow.
When it has nothing to do with it's really slow. It's really nice. Like,
oh yeah.
The outside, it looks as if it's gold. It's not actually gold. If you look up to the thing that usually tells you what floor it's on, it's like Ritz-Carlton hotel level nice.
I don't know if I would describe it like that.
Because here's the thing: most hotels you see nowadays have the little light up where it tells you.
It does have the dial.
Where it blinks at you, and this is a dial. And I was like, okay, I've never seen this even in a hotel before.
Okay, yeah.
So I was just like, this is some fancy stuff going on.
Well, I would say I think the elevators, like if you ever do anything, for an extended period of time at the Marble Palace, the elevator is like the bane of it's like the worst part because they're slow and there's two of them and you really should just take the stairs and get some exercise. That's kind of what I figured out.
Yeah,
although
I like the gallery in the chambers.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a beautiful building. The
seats look comfortable.
It is the Marble Palace. That is what it is, and the reason I harp on that so much isn't so much the fact that it's luxurious, although I do have a problem in some ways, but it's just the human condition, which is fallible, which is fallen, and when you walk in a building like that. You get the tendency, you get the feeling where you want to start eating horizontally, like a Greek god or something. Eat horizontally, have someone feed you the grapes. This is your temptation because you feel like, oh, I have arrived. You feel like I'm somebody, and it's because you're essentially surrounded in a kind of a Greek-style temple where you all of a sudden feel like you are elevated above everybody else. And that's what serves as the basis, as the cornerstone to create the bubble that is a bubble of deception where the special interests and the status quo are maintained. And that is why we call it the Marble Palace, folks, if you didn't know. But, Joe, you're right. It is a very nice building. But there's some really, it is I mean, it's lovely. There's no question.
The chandelier is super nice. We talked about that whenever we went to the top floor. I was looking down.
Yeah.
I looked up, and I saw the chandelier. I was like, that's a really nice chandelier. I like the American Eagle in the middle.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so we were at the Marble Palace because of the pharmacist. So I'm gonna.
Because there are no, I just realized that I called it the American Eagle,
The American
bald
Eagle
because
yeah.
there's no other bald.
It was
eagles
a chandelier
anywhere in the world.
of denim. It was the American Eagle chandelier. It was nice. Actually, it was a chandelier of T-shirts that look like they've been drugged behind a truck for a few days, and then Okay, so we were down there for the pharmacist rally. And we've got some great audio. I'm going to get to that here at the bottom of the next hour, the pharmacists' rally. It was very interesting because I have interviewed 2 pharmacists now. We've got a third coming up. We'll be talking to Mr. Greg Bell at 7:33 this morning. And he is a pharmacist that lives in District 16, this special election. So that'll be 2 from that area. So he's coming on. But I've interviewed 2 previously, and they have said that ASA doesn't support Ron Caldwell's bill. That has been the understanding, that ASA doesn't support Ron Caldwell's bill. But yesterday, Senator Caldwell's bill, yesterday, that's not the case, or at least the Pharmacists Association made very clear that we're moving forward with Senator Ron Caldwell's bill, and that this is the bill that we want. And it's also, and the person running it in the House is State Representative Michelle Gray. They made very clear, this is what we're doing. This is where we're going. Right? So get on board. This is the piece of legislation that has the consensus. Now, throughout that chamber, we were in the old Supreme Court room, pharmacists were telling me that the day before, ASA met with CVS Caremark. So he took a meeting with CVS Caremark, and I'm sure they were very concerned about being regulated or having their contracts exposed. Because if their contracts are exposed, everyone's going to know what a big scam this is, what a big sham this is. That's what they're going to know. And that's why they don't want that knowledge to be out in the public. So I thought that was the first thing that was interesting. The pharmacists are pushing the policy that they want. Now, the governor's spokesperson called me yesterday, Mr. J.R. Davis, to make me aware of something. J.R. Davis called me and wanted to make me aware that Mr. Doug Smith, who we have talked about many times on this program, Doug Smith sent the email to Mississippi County Republicans putting pressure on them to cancel Jan Morgan's speech. Okay, remember this? We recently interviewed Mr. Charles Fuqua this week, who was talking about his Trump Day dinner. He talked about how he had correspondence with Douglas Smith. And so we did. I guess that's the last time we talked about Doug Smith was earlier this week when we interviewed the Independence County Republican Chairman Charlie Fuqua. Well, J.R. Davis wanted to let me know that Doug Smith no longer works for the governor's office because, see, that was kind of a point of contention when you've got your taxpayer dollars going to a guy who's kind of sending emails and what is clearly political activity, trying to limit speech. And so J.R. Davis wanted to let me know, and I told him I'd correct the record, that Doug Smith no longer works for the governor's office. He now works for the Asa Hutchinson campaign. So now it appears ducks are in a row there. So I wanted to let you know that because, it's from correcting the record. Or at least, I don't know when the transfer happened. But anyway, he's been transferred. Well, while on the phone with J.R. Davis, I asked him about the pharmacy. The pharmacy situation is heating up. And J.R. Davis told me that there are 4 or 5 pieces of legislation floating around. And that kind of just got me thinking, okay, 4 or 5 different pieces of legislation. If that's true, which I assume it is. It may also could be 4 or 5 different types of language, but I mean, he said legislation, and we don't know what the consensus is. Well, the consensus of the pharmacists is they want Ron Caldwell's bill. And if they think that they can't, if they start to say, well, you know, we're not getting any traction, we're going to make the pharmacists mad, it's going to give us a really bad, you know, public opinion rating or whatever, if we don't go with Ron Caldwell's bill, my prediction is that they're going to love it to death. The establishment will get involved. They'll jump out in front, try to lead the parade, and they'll lead everybody away from the pharmacist goal, and they'll hijack Ron Caldwell's bill. That is my fear. That is what everybody needs to be aware of, that this is quite possibly the establishment loves to jump out in front of the parade, lead people away from the conservative goals, and instead make sure we get ASA's goals, make sure we get to where ASA wants the issue to end up. And that right now, as far as the pharmacy issue goes, is the big deal. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we've got this headline, lobbyist tied to kickback scheme arrested. We're talking, of course, about Rusty Cranford was arrested Wednesday morning. We've got that, and I can't. Is this his actual mugshot? So they got this guy out of bed? Is that what they did? I mean, that's what it looks like. Anyway, we've got to go to break, though. Back in just a moment. In a world full of constituents with social media accounts, bloggers just looking to increase their page views, and a talk radio host who generally is just the worst, how are Little Rock's elite supposed to conduct business with such a lack of privacy? Introducing the 1835 Club, older and more refined than other clubs that claim discretion. The 1835 Club is for seasoned political veterans that want to conduct the highest form of aristocratic business with the public's money. Are you a schemer? Do you someday want a guaranteed flow of taxpayer money to support your business? Is it your dream to see the .gov domain at the end of your business website? Don't listen to the imitators. The 1835 Club is the place where corrupt politicians and businessmen hatch their next crony schemes. At the 1835 Club, we make lobbying safe and legal. Ethics. Why, of course. All business is done in an ethical manner. Just look for the sign above the door that reads, loophole. Are you tired of the Capitol Police restricting your access to the roof after a perfectly good night of drinking? The 1835 Club has libations and a perfectly good roof. Other crony clubs that promise discretion try to lure you in by advertising bars made out of aeroplanes. Well, at the 1835 Club, instead of an airplane fuselage, we've got a space shuttle. No, not a bar. We've got an actual space shuttle that makes a daily run to the moon so members of the 1835 Club can have some real privacy away from the bloggers and taxpayers. Are you an Arkansas aristocrat? Do you want to be? It's the 1835 Club, and we work tirelessly to make sure the good old boy system remains alive and well. Join today.
Disclaimer. The 1835 Club reserves the right to deny membership to anyone who has principles. Any talk of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution must be done in jest or, at the very least, with a condescending tone. And finally, the 1835 Club will be given a 25% commission of any agreements made between politicians and the business community.
PHP Parody. The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
So it's really no surprise. Bentonville lobbyist tied to kickback scheme has been arrested. And this, of course, is on the heels of Eddie Cooper pleading guilty to taking basically Medicaid money, and it all had to do with Preferred Family Healthcare, a Missouri-based company that was essentially using Medicaid dollars to then pay lobbyists. It was a nonprofit to pay lobbyists to give them more money, to pay legislators to get them more money, and general improvement funds and everything else. It's a pretty complicated situation, but this is out of Springdale, and Doug Thompson reporting that the former top Arkansas executive for a nonprofit organization receiving millions each year in Medicaid reimbursements is set to appear in federal court in Fayetteville today on a 9-count indictment involving kickbacks and illegal lobbying. Milton Russell Rusty Cranford, 56, of Bentonville, was indicted by a Springfield, Missouri federal grand jury Tuesday and arrested Wednesday, according to a statement from Timothy A. Garrison, U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Missouri. Cranford was both the chief executive officer and lobbyist for the Arkansas operations of Preferred Family Healthcare of Springfield, Missouri. $93 million. Remember, Preferred Family Healthcare receiving $93 million in Medicaid payments from 4 states in 2016, according to federal records. This goes all the way to New Jersey. There was a guy up in New Jersey that pled guilty to being involved with this, and he pled guilty back in December. It's very weird stuff, and you wonder if everything's kind of unraveling here. I want to remind you, though, that the attorney for Preferred Family Healthcare is the same attorney that is hired to deal with FBI requests for the Arkansas Bureau of Legislative Research concerning the John Woods public corruption case. Now, why and how did that happen? Because your legislature let it happen. That's how. That's how it happened. Because they did not do their due diligence, and they even know that, and last I heard, it's still going on. The Bureau of Legislative Research hired the same attorney that is also the attorney for Preferred Family Healthcare. Did you know that? Specifically dealing with requests from the FBI, how to handle the requests from the FBI when they're after legislators' records in Little Rock. Something is weird about that whole situation. Now, let's see here. We keep going on, and it does mention Cooper. So there are 2 schemes here. There's Preferred Family Healthcare. Okay, quote, the indictment alleges that Cranford and co-conspirator Eddie Wayne Cooper of Melbourne received $264,000 in secret kickback payments from co-conspirator Donald Andrew Jones. Okay. But Doug Thompson rightly points out that Cranford also played a role in the kickback case involving Senator Woods. So we have Cranford here, who's kind of the linchpin that connects these 2 different scams, if they were indeed different at all. So Cranford played a role in the kickback case of former Senator John Woods and Micah Neal, both of Springdale. Neal pleaded guilty to 1 count of conspiracy back in January of 2017. Woods faces trial April 9th for taking a kickback in exchange for his and Neal's support in getting a $400,000 state grant to a company incorporated by Cranford. I mean, of course, all of this also has to do with Ecclesia College out of Springdale and all of the money going to Springdale. Now, do you know that there was a lot of people that were giving money to this college, but do you know that John Woods was getting legislators to give him their share of the money so that he could give more of it to Ecclesia and presumably take a kickback? Do you know who gave $100,000 of his share to John Woods to give to Ecclesia? Michael Lamoureux.
Shameless about that. I mean, Dianne Feinstein, if you remember the meeting that she shameless about that. I mean, Dianne Feinstein, if you remember the meeting that she and some of the Democrats were in attendance with the president, and they specifically talked about this. And she said, well, Mr. President, why can't we go on ahead and give legal status to the DACA recipients, and then we'll talk about securing the border later. We'll talk about securing the border later. I mean, that is absolutely shameless. That it really kind of really betrays their total, their real agenda, and that is that they have no interest in border security. They want to provide citizenship as a win to these individuals, and then leave the door open for more to come in so they can do it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're exactly right, and I appreciate. I definitely appreciate your thoughts on that, and I think a lot of our audience does as well. There was a ton of issues raised in that State of the Union, and of course now we are. Well, let me just say this. I guess when he gave the State of the Union address, some people were speculating, Congressman Crawford, that he was going to read from this memo, that was going to be released about what was going on with the FBI and the FISA application to what they're now saying, to essentially spy on the Trump campaign and everything else. He didn't do that, but later during the week he did declassify it, and now we know things. And you voted to declassify it, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Well, so how what just kind of describe all that for us, and were you shocked to when you read that memo? Were you shocked at the abuses in the Obama administration?
Let me give you a little bit of a timeline here that sort of tees up why the memo was necessary. There was a several month period that where the Intelligence Committee, on which I sit, requested information from FBI and DOJ as we were involved in executing our duly appointed Russia investigation responsibilities. And FBI and DOJ refused to give us that information. Repeated requests, and they ignored those. We eventually had to subpoena that information. Then a Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, decided it would be a good job to, upon receiving that subpoena, to go and talk to the Speaker of the House and do an end run around our committee, the requesting authority, and say, look, we really don't want to give this information up. Can you talk to the committee and have them drop this subpoena? And this is what I want people to understand. Speaker Ryan stood with us and for us and said, no, you're going to have to give up that information. I'm going to tell you, there's not a whole lot of speakers that would have done that. And he did it because he wanted to maintain the integrity.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, folks, welcome back. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm trying to find this. This is an old article here. I don't know why some articles, when you Google them, pull up this pressreader.com as the first result. Do what? I mean, I really don't, because it's an old Arkansas Democrat Gazette article. But and see now the thing won't even work. The control, and it's like it's a print or something. Anyway, it's frustrating. So as I'm looking at this old article, it is a headline here: Lisa Hammersley, state cash rolled into 2 Northwest Arkansas entities. So if we roll back you don't have this article, Joe. It's fine. Trust me, you don't want to use this thing. Tiny College Treatment Center got grants totaling $1.4 million. The reason we bring this up is because this is part of the public corruption trial of John Woods. It deals with Ecclesia College. It deals with John Woods getting all this GIF money, and apparently, allegedly, the college hires a consulting firm, and the consulting firm is the one that ends up paying the kickback. The because they're charging the college a fee for access to the senator's taxpayer-funded slush fund, right? But it wasn't just John Woods. John Woods was able to actually, Senator John Woods, get other people to give their share, give their share of general improvement money over the course of the years to John Woods, and then John Woods was giving it or convincing them to give it to Ecclesia College. Specifically, if you look at either Ecclesia or Decision Point, you're looking at Michael Lamoureux. Lamoureux, 2 grants totaling $100,000 to Ecclesia College. Okay? So that's where that is. Michael Lamoureux. Now, Michael Lamoureux, of course, the former senator from District 16. Asa Hutchinson's former chief of staff. And he was the chief of staff until he needed to go find another job after it was revealed that he took a $120,000 payment from a nonprofit funded by lobbyists when they only raised that nonprofit $140,000 that year, right? So as I look at this, and you look at John Woods, you look at Mike and Neal, you look at Jake Files, you look at Eddie Cooper now, okay? Now we have Rusty Cranford. That's the news. He was arrested yesterday morning. He's supposed to go to court sometime today. And then you look at Michael Lamoureux, right? Michael Lamoureux is a lobbyist for DBH Consulting. Their client is CVS Caremark, so it relates to the pharmacist situation that's going on now. Michael Lamoureux is a supporter of Breanne Davis. Let's go ahead and show that photo one more time. If you don't want to, you can look up the cash, you can look up the contributions from DBH Consulting PAC. But I mean, Breanne Davis is securely in the pocket of Big Pharma. Okay, but here's Michael Lamoureux back in December, and Breanne Davis together. These are friends. Okay, and I want you to understand something. District 16. Okay, Michael Lamoureux, Jake Files, John Woods, all of these guys, okay, are the heart of corruption in Arkansas politics. Right? They are the heart of what is wrong with politics in Arkansas. The machine, the anti-liberty machine, if you will. Okay? You have to understand, District 16, the decision that you have. And notice I didn't even bring up Asa Hutchinson's name, but obviously he's involved in all of this too because he supports these people. He supports Breanne Davis. Asa Hutchinson, everybody knew John Woods was guilty, and Asa Hutchinson threw him a fundraiser. We have the invitation. Asa Hutchinson, John Woods' name right there together. It was nice, gold and black. It was slick looking. District 16 has a monumental opportunity to say to Little Rock, we do not approve of the way you are conducting things. And so when Asa supports, okay, just think about this. When Asa supports Breanne Davis, which he does, it's his candidate. When Michael Lamoureux supports, it's almost like, Michael Lamoureux was the senator before the late Greg Standridge, okay? And it's a tragic loss. And I'll say, I've said this before, but, I didn't have a lot of interactions with Senator Standridge, but the last couple of, I guess the last session last year, I did have a few interactions with him, and I will just tell you his outlook on life. You could tell that he was just a very, very upbeat, positive, and happy individual, okay? He really, really was. So I'm not talking about him. I'm just saying when you look at Michael Lamoureux and you look at his body and what he did, and now he's back in the Russellville scene, and he's trying to influence the election, and he's putting support behind Breanne Davis, That is very worrisome, okay, because we're talking about players here. I mean, do you want a senator who's just a placeholder for whatever Asa wants, or do you want somebody who's going to think independently, okay? Do you want somebody who's just going to vote based on their principles and let the cards, the chips fall where they may, rather? Is that what do you want? And look, you know, nobody is going to agree on everything 100% of the time. Okay, great. We've got that. We know that. But when you agree with Asa 100% of the time, there's a problem. And there's most of these people do agree with him 100% of the time. And the direction he's taking the state is not a conservative one. So when you look at that grand picture there, and you look at the fact that Michael Lamoureux sent John Woods his share of GIF funds so he could send it to 100, so he could give it to Ecclesia College. Okay, when you look that that Michael Lamoureux works for DBH Consulting, is a lobbyist, and their client is CVS, and he supports Breanne Davis, and this pharmacy issue is going, you know, the way it's going. When you look that he was Governor Asa Hutchinson's chief of staff, you see how they keep everything so close? He was Asa Hutchinson's chief of staff until he took the $120,000. Well, until the $120,000 payment became public. And once the $120,000 payment became public from a nonprofit funded by lobbyists, and the only reason this was legal is because he's an attorney. And he's like, well, I'm an attorney. These are legal. But he got that money for fundraising. Well, he fundraised and he lobbied the lobbyist. You know, it's the whole thing is disgusting. And it's there for anyone to see. If you are wanting to be an honest politician, this is the bottom line. If you really are an honest politician, or you're wanting to portray yourself to your constituents as an honest politician, you would not take that photo. Because if you know what really happened, and then there's no way. I mean, there is nothing. This photo, a picture's worth 1,000 words, but I would settle on 2. Status quo. And that's what this represents. And it is dishonest to take $120,000 from a nonprofit when you're back then he was the president pro temp of the Senate, by the way. Must be nice. It is dishonest to have taken that money. It was a legal loophole for you to even do it. And it's a way for you to enrich yourselves. It was Michael Lamoureux went down there, became the president pro temp of the Senate, and carved out a financial niche for himself and gave himself a little nice windfall. Nice little windfall. And then he was the governor's chief of staff, and now he's a lobbyist. And all of the big lobbyists are supporting Breanne Davis from, you know, medical marijuana, which is now a lobby. And by the way, some of her supporters recently, I'm told, have come out and supported her because they have an interest in a future medical marijuana business, or they have interest in alcohol licensing. So anyway, this is a huge deal. This runoff election is huge, March 13th, and Governor Hutchinson is doing everything he can to win it. They are plotting. They are doing everything they can to win it. Because Asa wants coattails. Asa wants coattails. He doesn't want to be made to look like he doesn't have any coattails. And so Asa has a problem with anybody that disagrees with him at all. He has a huge problem with it. And this is about fealty. This is about total 100% loyalty. And he is trying to break you, District 16. Governor Asa Hutchinson wants to break you. The Republican political establishment wants to break you. They want that Senate seat. And I would like to encourage you to congenially resist. And when I say the Republican establishment, I'm told we may be looking at players getting involved here who aren't even about state politics. More to come on that if it's true. But we may be looking at people, politicians who are being, let me just say, reinforcements called in to try to stop a true conservative. If Breanne Davis wins this thing, essentially the Democrats have won. Whether it doesn't. I mean, she's Republican in name all. She's not even a member of the Pope County Republican Committee. The phone number, 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. You can sound off on Facebook. But there are key players that you can look at, and we're talking about the heart of corruption in Arkansas and the truth. Okay, so here's the thing, right? The truth is going to win, okay? That's what our whiteboard says. We haven't talked about it at all this week, but the truth will win. And this is the thing. And this is the attitude I have to constantly challenge myself, because when I hear them tell the lies or when I hear them distort things, and I'm now finding out that a lot of people, specifically with this District 16 thing, I mean, they want somebody that they're going to be able to go ask to get something from government. And it's like, okay, there's some special interests that want a politician that they can approach to get special favors, and that's a big deal. But listen, the truth is going to win. And I have to constantly challenge myself with this, because if Bob Bailey loses this election, okay, that's fine. We're putting factual information out on this program. We're doing the best we can to educate the voters. And if that's the vote, if the voters say, you know what, we don't care, we're going with the establishment anyway, so be it. That's what the district wants. Okay, that's part of it, right? But then there are efforts to kind of cover the light, and that's what the other side's trying to do. They're trying to cover the truth or distort it or outright lie. And you know what? If you lie to try to conceal the truth, I just have to say either the truth's going to win today or the truth is eventually going to win. It's just you can't run forever. Eventually, people are going to know the truth. And I say that in the most broad and specific way I can. I know that's contradictory, but I'm just telling you right now, that is the only thing. That's why I keep doing what I'm doing. Because, yeah, there's the possibility of loss. There's the possibility that the other side wins, that the Marble Palace lobby monolith continues, the status quo continues, and liberty continues to shrink and everything else. But we got to keep going. We got to try. And even if we are unsuccessful, folks, you know what? The truth will win eventually. And there is nothing. This is what's encouraged. There's nothing any of us can do to stop that. Nothing. And that is an encouraging thought. Phone number, 870-275-9799. Didn't mean to spend this much time on this, but we're going to take a break now. We're going to come back, reset. I'll cover some rest of the headlines. At 7:33, we've got District 16 pharmacist Mr. Greg Bell will be joining us. And I've got to do the pharmacy recap from the rally yesterday. We may hold that off until 7. We got some great audio from Tim Griffin, Ron Caldwell, and we'll be back in just a moment.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Welcome to the Arkansas Obamacare Hotline. We would be more than happy to help you enroll in Arkansas Obamacare today. We just need a little information about you. Let's get started. If you're disabled, pregnant, or looking for medical care for your child, the program is currently full, and there's no doctors to see you. Please hang up now. If you're an able-bodied adult, please press 1. If you're currently employed, we're sorry, but you most likely do not qualify for the program. Please quit your job and call back later. If you don't work and instead play video games all day with your cats in your grandmother's basement, please press 1. If you've never lived in Arkansas, press 1. If you currently live in another state, press 1. If you recently purchased a home in New Jersey for $750,000, please press 1. If your current identity has previously been used by another person, was created before your actual date of birth, or doesn't really exist, please press 1. Congratulations! It sounds like you're the perfect candidate to receive Arkansas Obamacare. Please stay on the line, and a hardworking DHS employee will be with you as soon as possible. While you're waiting, feel free to relax as your ambitions to gainful employment fade away. PHP Parody. Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, welcome back. Oh my goodness, what is going on? Speaking of trying to break District 16, Governor Asa Hutchinson taking a shot at Brian King in an interesting. Let me find this. Yeah, taking a shot at Brian King. Brian King had a proposal that failed the other day concerning Medicaid expansion. And this is what Asa said, according to the Democrat Gazette, about Brian King and the people of his district. Quote, everything Senator King proposes is of growing irrelevance. Wow. That's crazy. Everything Senator King proposes is of growing irrelevance. What a terrible thing to say. But the governor doesn't like Senator King, and Senator King is not a fan of the governor misleading people. So you can imagine Asa's joy and just glee when he wakes up to the headline that Brian King has changed his mind and decided to seek re-election. I imagine this is what Asa sounded like this morning. No! One more time. Captain Jean-Luc Picard, take it away. No! No! In reversal, Brian King to run for Senate. I wish I had the Hallelujah chorus right now. That's what I want. Green Forest incumbent takes on Bob Ballinger in GOP primary. Scroll down, Joe. Let me see this here. State Senator Brian King reversed course this week, announcing that he will seek re-election 3 months after saying his current term would be his last. In December, the Green Forest Republican cited his family farm and frustration with his party leaders in Little Rock when discussing his plans to leave the legislature. But in an interview Wednesday, King said he had renewed hope to see some things change in Little Rock, although he declined to elaborate. I wonder what that means. Senator Brian King seeking re-election. Now, this article goes on to talk about how one of the key issues in this primary, again, between State Representative Bob Ballinger and Senator Brian King, is going to be the tort reform issue. They say that's going to be where the two differ the most, is a tort reform. Now, Bob Ballinger had some very, you would say, I guess, pointed things to say about Brian King as well. Quote, I think Senator King has accomplished a lot over his time in the legislature, even though I don't agree with all of it. But in recent years, he's gotten bitter. You can be conservative without being angry. That's what Bob Ballinger says of Brian King. No, I mean, I would disagree. I know that Senator King is, he goes down to Little Rock with his elbows out because that's what you have to do. Because this place is, if you don't have that attitude, you become part of the ship, if you will. The Marble Palace, as pretty as it is, it's also like that Pirates of the Caribbean movie where the crew just eventually, you get down there and the crew eventually becomes part. Was that Davy Jones' ship or whatever? You just become part of the ship. You know what I mean? You become a creature of the swamp if you don't go down there recognizing what the problems are. And, Brian King has served in the House and he's in the Senate now, and he has seen what's gone on with the budget. He has seen how Republicans have come in and they have squandered surpluses. He has seen how they expanded the largest expansion of government in Arkansas history, and Republicans keep bending over backwards trying to make excuses for why it had to be done, and they never admit that it's been a complete failure and a complete disaster, even to this day. And, if Asa Hutchinson doesn't like Brian King, that's all you need to know. You're a Brian King fan now, aren't you? Those of you who don't even know, you're a Brian King fan. I'm telling you, the people, the swamp cannot stand Brian King. That's a good thing. It's a very good thing. So he wanted, let's see here. The legislative panel Wednesday ditched a proposal by Brian King aimed at turning Arkansas's version of Medicaid expansion, under which the state purchases private insurance for some low-income Arkansans, into a fee-for-service program. Meanwhile, the Senate's leaders said they are aiming to wrap up action of this year's fiscal session that started February 12th by the end of next week. So, essentially, Brian King is now making the argument that if we would just scrap giving Blue Cross Blue Shield all this money, the money that Blue Cross Blue Shield is then using to put pharmacists out of business under Arkansas Works with the pharmacy benefit managers. Yeah, you pharmacists, your own tax dollars are going to put you out of business. I know, isn't that great? That's your government working for you, isn't it? Essentially, Brian King is saying, look, at this point, we're paying Blue Cross Blue Shield $570 a month per person. Right? There has been 300,000 people on this program, 330. Now they say it's down to 280, but if you can believe that, the only reason it's down to 280 is because Ace is up for re-election and he wants these positive. He waits. If he'd have done this 36 months ago, you know how much money we would have saved? A bunch of money. But that'd be federal tax dollars. And he doesn't care about federal tax dollars. See, Asa Hutchinson, he only is remotely fiscally conservative if you can ignore that you're a federal taxpayer as well as a state taxpayer. He wants you to just say, well, you're a state taxpayer. No, I'm a federal taxpayer too, and you are spending us into oblivion. Brian King wanting to move everything to traditional Medicaid because it's cheaper, because you only pay if people go to the doctor versus paying Blue Cross Blue Shield $500 a month per person regardless.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
Yeah, committee and support the committee, and he does that. He's very supportive of the authority of committee. So this was the agreement. Rather than just bring the information forth, they said, well, this is really sensitive information, so we're going to set up a reading room over at DOJ and provide and allow limited access. So they put it in a SCIF over at DOJ, and the parameters were accepted that, we could have one member and two staff members go and view the material. So Chairman Devin Nunes appointed Trey Gowdy as our member, because Trey Gowdy is an accomplished former federal prosecutor, and who else would you rather have doing that?
Exactly.
He's phenomenal.
Yeah, exactly.
So he goes over there, views the documents along with two of our staff who are attorneys as well. And they come back and they draft this memo based on the contents of that of the material they saw. A 3.5-page memo where there were no pejoratives or adjectives or speculation or name calling or anything like that, but purely pointing out facts, period. End of story. There were no sources and methods, and there was no compromise of national security. Therefore, the committee voted along party lines to release that to the House members for their review, which we did. It stayed in the SCIF for a period of probably 10 days to allow members to review it. There were well over 200 Republican members that viewed it, and less than 50 Democrats that viewed it. Now, they all had an opinion on it, but only 50 of them took the trouble to come down and view it.
Wow.
Then we voted send it to the president for his review and for his disposition in regards to declassification to make it public. He did that. It was viewed by the FBI. The FBI could not refute one single fact thematically or materially. It was accurate, and they knew it. They didn't want it out because it pointed to some individuals as some bad actors within their ranks, and that's why they didn't want it released, but they could not refute the accuracy or the validity thematically, materially, or otherwise. So that's why it was released, and that was the process we followed. Now, contrast that with the Democrats, who say, well, we want to put our material out. Well, there was nothing to stop them or prevent them from doing a memo either. They had the same access as we did, as I described it before. So what they came out with was a 10-page memo with 38 footnotes filled with pejorative and adjectives and name-calling and calling out people like Trey Gowdy, Devin Nunes, and President Trump. It was nothing more than a hit job pushing back against our fact-based memo, and deliberately written to include sources and methods, knowing that we would go through the same process to allow members to view it. Again, same process, and guess how many Democrats came and read it? Probably about the same number. Far more Republicans came down to read that memo as well. So the Democrats aren't really interested in reading what they're talking about. They just want to spout off opinions about it. So then we voted unanimously, the Republicans included, to release their memo to the membership. And then we voted, as Republicans and Democrats, all of us voted yes to release it to the president. Now, here's where things, get political. The memo was written politically. The memo was written for effect. The memo was deliberately included sources and methods, knowing that if it goes to the president for the same declassification as ours received, that he would have to redact it in order to declassify it. And he didn't play that game. We had the FBI and DOJ review it. The president looked at it and said, I'm not going to release this in its current form. The FBI has to make the determination of what's acceptable. There were some 47 items that would have required redaction and 17 others that were questionable. So basically what the president did was he took a red pen and said, hey, here's your English composition, circled all the mistakes on your rough draft, and to go back and do it again. And he didn't play the game. He beat them at their own game. What they wanted to do was for him to redact and send it out there and say, see, he's got something to hide. That's what this whole memo on their part was about trying to set up the president to be someone and use that as an argument to buttress as evidence to buttress their argument for obstruction of justice. So it didn't work. Nobody's buying it. And if they want to make a statement to refute our memo, they're free to do that, but they've still got to follow the same classification guidelines and respect the sources and methods and all that kind of stuff, or it'll never see daylight in public.
This is a fantastic story. We're talking with Congressman
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, so Joe, Reggie on Facebook writes that the elevators in the Capitol are slow so that lobbyists have more time to bribe the legislators. That's got to be the comment of the hour from last hour, for sure.
Have you ever heard of the elevator presentation?
I have not.
So it's a marketing thing for the most part, or it's something that has to do with business.
Yeah.
When someone tells you need to prepare an elevator speech, it has to be short, quick, and to the point, just long enough for an elevator ride.
Yeah.
To get your point across and to get what you're trying to sell
to
the
grab
customer.
their attention.
Exactly.
So that they want more details.
This is an elongated elevator speech because the elevator's so slow.
Yeah. I think but some of these guys, they could do, some of these legislators, they don't need a long elevator ride. It's like they see a lobbyist coming and they say, yes. They see a lobbyist coming and they say, how much are you going to pay me? Okay, yes.
You had me at hello.
Yeah, exactly. All right, welcome, folks. It's the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. It is hour number 2. We're building a liberty machine. The larger the liberty machine gets, the more of the establishment Republicans and the establishment Democrat Party are going to, become uncomfortable. They see what we're building here. We just got to put it into action, and we're doing that right now. Last hour, I had some strong words about Michael Lamoureux and John Woods, Ecclesia College, Micah Neal, Eddie Cooper, Rusty Cranford. Why not throw a Jake Files in there? Partridge in a pear tree. I had some strong words, and I did have some strong words for the folks of District 16 with the runoff Asa Michael Lamoureux-backed Breanne Davis versus Bob Bailey, who is anti-establishment, pro-liberty, pro-freedom, mainly pro-consistent principles, just governed by your principles. That's all that we need, right? So, based on that, I have one more thing to say, because this is harsh. I basically said that if you look at the Michael Lamoureux, you look at the lobbyists, the Michael Lamoureux, what he's done, he gave $100,000 of his GIF money to John Woods to give to Ecclesia. Michael Lamoureux taking the money and $120,000 from the nonprofit funded by lobbyists. I basically said all of this is the heart of corruption here in Arkansas, and District 16 needs to realize that. So you can go see my previous monologue on that. Okay, but there's one more thing I wanted to add to that monologue that I forgot to add, and this is it. Okay, so when you see that photo, Joe, show us that photo of Breanne Davis with Michael Lamoureux one more time. Okay, all right. So here it is. You see this photo now. So you are either in on it or you don't know what these individuals have done that are unethical and are feeding a corrupt system that is actually trying to actively deceive and thwart the will of the people to have a limited conservative government. And both of those options are ridiculous, okay? If you're in on it, okay, we don't want you, right? But if you don't know, how in the world can you be effective representative for the people? That's the last I'll say about it. Okay, we're done with that. Moving on. We were at the pharmacy rally yesterday. There was some fascinating stuff that was said. We're going to start with Senator Ron Caldwell. This is his bill. He's the bill that is this is the bill that the pharmacists are now supporting, and this is what Senator Ron Caldwell said, and I felt like this was the key moment of his speech yesterday at this rally. It was packed house. Listen.
Legislation to try to get to something that we can all live with is quite a task. We want to pass a bill that accomplishes the goals that we need to accomplish. I've told my colleagues on the other side of the aisle that I don't want to pass a bill that says something and does nothing.
Stop.
We're past that.
Pause that. We want to keep. I know the audio's tough. The rest of the audio's not as bad as this. He says, I've told my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, we want to make sure that we pass a bill that does something. It doesn't just say that it does something, it actually does something. And he reiterates that. Keep going.
We're at a critical mass state in Arkansas. So many of the pharmacists are first-line healthcare providers. Those that take blood pressure, take temperatures, that give flu shots for people that may live miles away from a healthcare clinic. So this is something that we need to get crafted. It needs to be common sense. It's something that everyone can live with. But again, I state we want a bill that not just says something, but actually will do something.
We want a bill that doesn't just say something, it actually does something. Now, that to me means that there's the possibility that we get a bill that just says something but doesn't actually do something. You hear me, pharmacists? You got to be careful. I thought your rally yesterday was great. It was a very interesting phenomenon. I've interviewed 2 pharmacists. We're about to interview a 3rd pharmacist here coming up at 7:33. And you guys, apparently the Pharmacy Association has been sharing my videos, the Conduit News videos in an email chain, and I walked in that room and I got a lot of familiar glances, and so a lot of you knew me, and I didn't know any of you, but I shook a lot of your hands, and I appreciate all of the support and the gratefulness that you guys were talking, that we're covering this issue. Well, we're covering this issue because you pharmacists, hear me out, you pharmacists are the canary in the coal mine. You realize that, right? You guys are essentially the first casualties here. You're the canary in the coal mine. Pharmacy is the victim here of Arkansas, the government of Arkansas, getting in bed with insurance companies and hospitals and PBMs and using your taxpayer dollars to do it, and you guys are the first ones to, in terms of, you guys operate on a profit and loss system. You guys operate on, we have to have more money coming in than going out. Blue Cross Blue Shield doesn't necessarily have to do, I mean, they're getting rich, don't get me wrong, but they can all, or hospitals, they can always inflate their loss numbers, and they can do all kinds of things. You guys are small business owners. You small pharmacists, most of you are small business owners. You guys got to have more money coming in than going out if you want to keep the doors open. The rest of the healthcare, quote, market doesn't have to do that. Now, I'm going to shut up, and I'm going to let you hear to somebody who was very articulate yesterday and very well received, and I really appreciate his comments. This is Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin. And Lieutenant Governor, hang on one second, and Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin is great. It's great that he uses his office to bring to light the shortfalls of the state of Arkansas in general right now, but specifically with healthcare. Anyway, here he is.
What we need, and this is in reference to something Senator Caldwell said, what we need is a fair, level playing field. On a fair, level playing field, Arkansas pharmacists can compete. We don't have a fair, level playing field. We don't have a healthy market. We don't have healthy competition. And it is not just in this area. It is writ large in healthcare. If you doubt what I'm saying, look at the Kaiser Foundation and a lot of the other rankings. We have one of the worst ratings in the country for a market in healthcare. So it's not that the market is messed up. So we don't have a market. The type of stuff going on here, that doesn't happen in a market where there's competition and transparency and a lot of other these principles that are absolutely critical to have a market properly function. What we have is dysfunction because of oversized players that are basically helping themselves at your expense. But let me talk about the practical consequences of this. I heard about this problem, I guess shortly after the beginning of the year. Had some friends who are pharmacists reach out to me. And then I met with Scott and some others to learn more about this. And then more constituents started reaching out to me. Now let me tell you, yes, pharmacists were the first folks that I heard from. But it's not because they're the only folks. It's because they're on the front line. We know in the Army that the frontline troops get it first, but they're not the only troops. So yes, the pharmacists are the first to say, hey, what's going on here? But there are a lot of folks behind those pharmacists who buy prescription drugs, who rely on prescription drugs, me, that are being impacted or will be impacted. The consequence of this, if we do not fix it, it's not just the pharmacists, and that's a big deal. These small business folks around the state, their livelihood, that's a big deal. But much, much broader consequences. What are those? Well, access to health care, particularly in rural areas. In the rural areas, as you indicated, in a lot of these rural areas, your pharmacist is your health care provider. They're the ones that keep you going. You're going to have less access to health care. And price is going to go up. So you're going to pay more and have less access. That's exactly the wrong way for Arkansas, when we already rank poorly in those areas anyway. So this is common sense. But this room, yes, there's a lot of pharmacists in here, a lot of folks that support pharmacists here, but that's not why this room is packed. This room is packed because this is an Arkansas issue. This is every household in Arkansas, and that's why this room is packed, and that's why this is such a big deal, and that's why we've got to pass Representative Gray's bill in the House and Senator Caldwell's bill in the Senate. Thank y'all.
Yeah, it was a big response there, and Tim Griffin doing a great job of pointing out that Arkansas ranks very, very, very poorly. What was it, 50th in health care, according to the... It's ridiculous, and yet, we're the leading we're doing Arkansas Works. We're leading the nation. We're leading the nation. You know who said that? Yeah, Asa says that. You know who else says that? Hillary Clinton. That's right. She goes around bragging on Arkansas every chance she gets, and she mentioned Asa Hutchinson by name. We're gonna we'll pull that back up later in this broadcast, because that audio is absolutely it's just beautiful. Beautiful. Can you say progressive? Can you say progressive Republican? Progressive Democrats? See, when you're progressive is at the beginning of your description, you're going to agree on certain things. The only difference is you're in different parties, but you're progressives. Tim Griffin, excellent job. The pharmacists, I know, really, really appreciated it. So here's the thing. They're backing Caldwell's bill and Gray's bill. They're backing that bill, right? That's the bill they want. I've talked to pharmacists that say ASA doesn't want that bill. Again, I heard I heard yesterday that there's 4 or 5 other pieces of legislation that are floating around out there. I am cautioning the pharmacists. I am cautioning Senator Caldwell, Representative Gray. The leadership is going to try to hijack your bill. And when they do, they will jump out in front of the parade, and they will lead you to ACE's goals and not the pharmacist's goals. This is what they do. They will call it conservative. They will say they love your bill. They love Caldwell's bill. They love Gray's bill. We love it, love it, love it. And then they'll love it to death. And they will kill it. They will amend it. They will shred it. And I'm telling you, that's what you have to watch out for, pharmacists. You cannot trust anything that Asa says, because what he says with out of one side of his mouth, he says something else. He's a carefully crafted wizard, this guy. He tries to ride the fence, but really and truly, it's just, he's going to accomplish CVS's goals if you don't watch him. If CVS throws a temper tantrum, you might have accomplished something here. If they don't, then we've got problems. Now, this is what State Representative Michelle Gray had to say, speaking of trusting the governor. Listen to this.
I do want to talk about, I had a comment in the Democrat Gazette earlier in the week where I said I didn't understand why the governor wouldn't take care of this right now. I still wish this could be taken care of immediately. I still do. But I met with the governor this morning, and we sat directly across from each other, and we looked, we had complete eye contact, and he assures me that this bill, which we are still working to finalize it to make sure that there are no unintended consequences,
Red flag,
both chambers are working together, that this bill, once finalized, will be on the special call. He looked me in the eyes, and I have to trust that. If I can't trust my governor to do what he says he'll do, I might as well just pack up and go home. So with that, I'm saying, although I'd love to have this done right now, I do understand wanting to keep the sanctity of the chambers and the fiscal session in place. And so I'm going to back off.
All right, so she was for it in a fiscal session. Now she's saying no, and that was kind of the consensus. All the pharmacists were like, okay, we're gonna back off. We'll do this in a special session. But now you're giving the governor the power, and now they have these ridiculous unconstitutional requirements. They're unconstitutional, meaning they're not illegal, but they're now saying in order for the governor to call a special session, he wants 2/3 support. He wants basically a pre-vote. Well, that means he just wants to make sure that once you get in there, there's not going to be any debate or amendments. He doesn't want – see, the governor doesn't want the legislature to have the constitutional power because CVS is whispering in his ear. If you just let this thing go – see, that's the thing. If they were to do it in a fiscal session, the governor has no control over the legislation. If you do it in a fiscal session – so not doing this in a fiscal session has now given the governor more control. Not doing it in a fiscal session. Right now, you guys have constitutional power because you're in a fiscal session, and the Constitution allows you to bring a non-budgetary item up. It's in the Constitution. You guys have all the power. You guys cannot be lapdogs, okay? But they've given up on that. And look, the pharmacists, they're trying to negotiate or whatever. But I'm just telling you, you guys should have pushed back. You guys should have pushed back on this because you should have tried to do it in a fiscal session. Giving the governor the power, now it's up to him because only he can call he was smirking the other day in his press conference. Well, it's the governor's responsibility to call a special session. That's my responsibility. It's like, yeah, okay, we know that. And so now it's up to the governor, but the governor's going to say, well, we got to have that 2/3 support. Why did he say that? He said it in the press conference because we don't want to go in with a 51-vote majority and then somebody changed their mind, and then the press asks me why we didn't get the job done. See, if he doesn't get 2/3 support in the pre-special session whip count, he can blame the legislature. Well, the legislatures don't care about pharmacists. Well, what if the bill that Asa proposes is a giant, what if it's not good? What if it's not a good thing? Well, you just don't care about the pharmacists. You see how Asa has all the cards now. Asa has all the cards now. That's what's happening, pharmacists. You got to be very, very careful. Lee crafted language. We got to take a break. Back in a moment.
In Arkansas, every single hour there is a politician not getting what they want. For some, it's an absolute nightmare. The sleepless nights wondering if progress will ever come. Lying awake pondering how to grow government in this political climate. Asking questions like, Why don't my constituents want to pay a few cents more in taxes? Everyday politicians feel abused and neglected. These politicians are starving for power. They're hungry, confused, and they don't understand why no one seems to care. Will you be a patriot and commit today to help these poor, starved for power public officials? It's simple. All you have to do is commit to stay silent and never dissent or stand in the way of your politicians' rise to power. Never speak up or get engaged to stop the growth of government. By committing to these simple steps, you will ensure the life of your politician will be filled with contentment and the respect they are desperately seeking, as well as campaign contributions from lobbyists.
This message brought to you by Aristocrats Serving Arkansas.
PHP Parody. Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Happy filing day, everyone. Candidate filing time is at hand. Welcome back to the program. Yeah, that's right. Today is the beginning of the filing period. We have this Hunter Field article, Northwest Arkansas Democrat Gazette, candidate filing time at hand in Arkansas for 173 seats. Of course, the filing fee is outrageous, but hey, these parties got to make that money. After months of talk, the time has come to put pen to form. Filing starts Thursday for Arkansans seeking to run for the 173 state and federal offices on the ballot this year. The seats up for election include all 7 state constitutional offices, all 4 U.S. House seats, 17 Senate seats, and all 100 state House seats, plus judicial positions. All right, interesting. You know who else is running? You know who's reversed course and changed his mind? If you're just joining us, the news, Senator Brian King is seeking re-election. That's right. He said he wasn't going to seek it. He was basically going to allow Bob Ballinger, State Representative Ballinger, to ascend to the higher chamber. I know House members would disagree with that, but it's clearly the higher chamber. And now Senator King is saying, nope, I think the people of my district need a choice. He's from Green Forest, and every special interest group in Little Rock this morning woke up to that headline, and they went like this.
No! No!
Yes, it's because Brian King is anti-establishment, and so the fight goes on. We'll be right back with a special guest. We'll be interviewing pharmacist Mr. Greg Bell from District 16 when we come back. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. We can't do the show without you. Good morning to everybody out there. Back in just a moment. Crawford. He is a member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, so that's why he has this integral knowledge of what took place in this timeline. And I would just say, you know, the lead up to the release of the initial memo, the first one that was drafted by Congressman Nunes, you had Congressman Adam Schiff saying that the memo is going to reveal sources and methods. The memo's released; it clearly doesn't reveal sources and methods. But then their memo, actually, the one that they craft, does reveal sources and methods. I mean, that's the definition of hypocrisy.
Absolutely. They wanted redaction. They wanted the FBI to do redaction separately, and they wanted the president's legal team to do redaction separately so they could compare the two and say, look, see, the president he's trying to obstruct. It was politically cooked up idea. It was exposed for what it is. It's absolutely a travesty, and it shows that members on that committee under Adam Schiff's leadership have no interest in finding the truth. What they have an interest in is continuing to engage in this protracted investigation where we found no evidence to support their charges. And believe me, we have conducted a thorough investigation. Every time we bring up one of the witnesses that they request, they'll ask for two more. And to the point where it's ridiculous that, I mean, they might want to have, somebody that handled President Trump's bags in 2016.
Wow.
Because they might have overheard a conversation or something. I mean, it's that ludicrous.
So Congressman Crawford, we're also told that there may be more memos coming from this committee, maybe on the State Department. Is that true? Is that accurate? Do you expect that to happen?
I'm not sure. Yes, there is a more fulsome representation forthcoming on the extent to which the previous administration was involved in activities relating to this topic. So when we talk about Russia collusion, yes, we have discovered Russia collusion. That Russia collusion exists within the Hillary for America campaign, the DNC, and many of her associates. We know, and it's been acknowledged by at least one of the members on the House Intelligence Committee, one of my colleagues on the committee, acknowledged unequivocally that, yes, the DNC and Hillary for America paid for the Trump dossier. And there's now more information about the Trump dossier, how it materialized, who shared it, with whom, and a lot of other details that will become public at some point in time. But, yes,
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
All right, good morning. Welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. Man, we've had a good show today. It's been a lot of news to get to, I'll tell you that much, and I think we're not even hang on one second. That button is sticking again. I don't even think we didn't even get to it all. But, hey, joining me now, I want to welcome to the program. We have Mr. Greg Bell is on the line. Greg is a pharmacist, and he lives in District 16. Now, Greg, tell me again specifically where you live. I know it's not Russellville.
No, sir. I live in a little town called Hector. It's about 20 miles north of Russellville.
Okay.
About 500 people population.
Okay, great. So you are, then at 500 people, that is a small rural town for sure. And I met you. Yes. I had the privilege of meeting you down there at the pharmacy rally yesterday. Mm-hmm. What did you think about all that?
I'm excited about everything going on down there, and I really appreciate the hard work that the legislators are putting into it and supporting us, and it sounded good to me.
Yeah. And I think that was a lot of people are just happy that there's people at least acknowledging that there is an issue.
Exactly.
Greg,
yeah.
can
we've been
go ahead.
We've been trying to get something done on this for years. I'm sorry I kind of cut you off, but it's good to finally have a voice in legislature and know that somebody is working for us. That's good to know.
So. Can you just describe the problem with PBMs, CVS Caremark, and specifically you being a pharmacist in a town of 500 people? How has that affected you?
Well, let me start with the problem with CVS Caremark specifically. At the beginning of the year, January 1, they reduced reimbursements by a larger amount than we normally see. There are times we expect some changes in reimbursement rates. Those come as business goes. But this year it was a lot more predatory than in previous years. shortly after the price changes, of course, we immediately realized a lot of prescriptions are reimbursing below our actual costs. And that's happened before, but if a person had 3 prescriptions, 2 of them were making money on and 1 of them were not, it usually worked out. The cuts were so severe this time that it was, we were having to make a choice of filling prescriptions for this patient or not.
Now, Greg, let me stop you. When you say you guys lose money on it, this is just the cost of getting the drug there and selling it. This doesn't take into effect overhead or labor costs. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct. Yes. That gets into another topic, which is the cost of dispensing a drug, and that's your employees, your electric bill, your overhead. Mm-hmm. That's another figure altogether. It ranges anywhere from $10 to $12 a prescription. So we were losing that also. And then the effect then on a pharmacy such as mine, the nearest other pharmacy is 10 miles away in a little town called Dover. I serve patients probably in about a 30-mile radius, kind of like the example Scott gave yesterday of a patient that was epileptic that the pharmacist had to choose whether to let that guy go without his medicine or lose money. That's the position we're in now, mm-hmm. And it's tough.
Wow. So we have the attention. I mean, everything seems to be going forward. I did point out, though, that not taking care of this in a fiscal session when the legislature already has power, and now they're going to say, well, we're going to do a special session if we can agree upon the language.
Yes.
What's that language going to be? I'm told that the governor had a closed-door meeting with CVS 2 days ago, and pharmacists were talking about it. And so, I think it was good that the Pharmacy Association came out and supported Senator Caldwell's bill, because that seems to be the one that's going to give the insurance department the authority as well as the transparency that you guys want.
Right.
But from what I can tell, CVS does not want that transparency. They don't want you to really, and this is my words, but they don't want the public to know what a giant scam this is.
Yeah, you coined it pretty accurately there, Paul. Of course, they don't want the public to know. There would be outrage, against them. But I don't. They've been able to keep it under a lid for years. It won't surprise me if they have the power to keep it covered. But we've got more momentum now than we've ever had. So I just got to hope that we can overcome it this time.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously I know they want this they're going to put an emergency clause on this, which is it's a very, very common thing that happens, but it means once it's in the law, it goes into effect immediately. And you guys need this, because I've talked to folks who say that there are pharmacies that will be out of business by the end of the year if this PBM situation is not remedied. Is that true?
It is true. And, one point that Scott Pace made yesterday was not only did they drop the prices, but shortly after they did that, then they started sending these letters out trying to buy pharmacies. And their intention is to devalue the pharmacy by making them less profitable. Therefore, it gives them the opportunity to basically just save a pharmacy, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And get it for less than what it's actually worth. And, we've got letters that have been sent to pharmacies that we've never received letters from CVS in the past. So it's pretty good evidence to me that that's their intention, is to drive competition out.
So basically, a small town like Hector, 500 people, CVS eventually wants to have a pharmacy there. I mean, is that essentially what you think they want to do?
I doubt if they want to have a pharmacy at Hector. No, I've not received a letter. It would be bigger stores than mine, but they wouldn't care if, of course, they provide mail order service, and I don't know. CVS Caremark is probably involved in 40 to 50% of my business, which is a huge number. So, if we can't sustain business at the rates that what they've got, then my clients will have to go elsewhere.
Yeah,
and that they would stand a chance of reaping some of that business, whether they bought me or not.
So there's a clear divide between the Arkansas Pharmacists Association and what I will call big pharma, and so that would be CVS, Caremark, and that sort of situation. We you can track the money, and so they have a lot of money. Big pharma does in general to give to a lot of politicians' campaigns and races. Now, specifically in District 16, which you live in, there's a special election right now. Going on. Runoff is going to be March 13th, and the two candidates, you have one candidate, Breanne Davis, that has taken big pharma money in the form of several, DBH consulting donations. Their client is CVS and everything else. It's very transparent. You can see that. And then you have Bob Bailey, who hasn't taken it. So has that – I just want to ask you, if you don't mind, have you thought about who you're supporting, and does that have anything to do with it?
I am supporting Bob for multiple reasons. Bob and I have been friends for a long time. I know Bob. I know his character. I know what he's going to bring to the table when he gets down there. In addition to all of that, yes, that does factor into my decision. If anybody takes money from Big Pharma, then they're no friend of mine as a pharmacist. And you can... I know Breanne. I've got a friend of mine that supports her, and he says he thinks she's not going to be influenced by that. I don't understand how you can take money from somebody and not be influenced by it. That's just my opinion.
I think that's common sense, and you never know. There are some people who have different interests as well, in maybe future endeavors and that sort of thing. That might influence why they support one candidate or the other. Maybe, for some, it's not just about pharmacy. Maybe it could be about something else, and that's kind of what I'm told. But we'll have to wait and see. Folks, we're talking with Greg Bell. He is a pharmacist from Hector that's in District 16, and it was great to meet him the other day. Now, Greg, were you at the pharmacist went down there for the hearing earlier, or maybe last month or earlier this month? Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. It was a little earlier, and I had to work that day. I didn't make it that day.
Okay. Because I was going to ask you, was the turnout bigger this time or last time? Because I would like to know. I have a feeling that it was bigger this last time than it was the first time.
Yeah, my understanding is that we had a much bigger turnout. And we had a good turnout the time before, but I think there was a bigger response this last time.
Yeah, and you had a ton of legislators who were behind you, and they're hopefully, I really hope they do something to get this done because and here's the thing, Greg, I'm not for excess regulation. And this is kind of Ron Caldwell said right now there is no regulation on this at all.
That's exactly right. Yeah, he spoke as a Republican. He generally liked less government oversight, but in this case, there's zero oversight, and that's exactly right. And they're the only player in the medical field that's not regulated.
Yeah.
So that's their advantage.
Well, this is an observation that I kind of thought about yesterday in terms of if you look at Arkansas Works and you look at taxpayer money going to Blue Cross Blue Shield to fund Arkansas Works, and then that money is being used to try to put pharmacists out of business. That this is a form of socialism, right? Or if you look at how you could even say fascism if you look at how the government is still allowing the companies to at least put out the facade that they're private, but they're being controlled by government regulations. And now here we the people, as a conservative, we're now in this quasi-socialistic system, and we're crying out for more regulations. We're crying to the government for more regulations to try to fix a problem that was caused by the government in the first place. And I think that doesn't need to be lost here. And, I think the movement is necessary. The correction is necessary. But the reason we're here is because big business and government brought us to this point.
Created it. Yeah, that's right. And then, as I understand, this Arkansas Works, I think CVS Caremark may have had a hand in writing that policy too. So,
yeah,
I'm sure they had it tweaked the way they wanted it tweaked.
Yeah, yeah, they definitely have. Hey, Greg, I appreciate you coming on the program. It was great to meet you. I hope to meet more pharmacists and more people who want to come on the program. And anytime you need anything, just let us know, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Paul, I appreciate meeting you. I appreciate your work, man. Thank you for the opportunity to come on.
Thank you. Mr. Greg Bell, everybody. All right, folks, good morning to you. We're going to take a break. We're going to be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
iTex is your first choice for cost-effective IT services. Protecting your business means protecting your data. Are you tired of unpredictable and expensive spikes in IT spending? Using iTex will prevent downtime and loss of employee productivity, and do it all with an affordable, predictable budget. iTex is the premier managed service provider for small and medium businesses. They help their clients put IT to work to earn your business more money, and you should contact them today for a free consultation. 870-336-9778. That's 870-336-9778 or itexusa.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas. This is for all you big government establishment Republicans out there. Hope you're listening. I keep a close watch on these votes of mine. I keep my finger in the wind all the time. I vote big government, and you will pay with your dime. 'Cause every time I toe the line. You know, there's always an excuse not to shrink government. It's much easier just to toe that line. I find it very easy to be rhino blue. I find I'm not alone when failing to come through. Yes, big government, I'm a fool for you. 'Cause every time I toe that line. Legislative sleight of hand would be an accurate description. Or you could just say, they can't quit towing that party line. As sure as night is dark and day is light, I'll vote big government both day and night. And act like I'm shocked when it all comes to light. 'cause every time I toe the line. You know, the phrase toe the line is the equivalent of toe the mark, both of which mean to conform to a rule or standard. You could also call it the status quo. Tax and spend, I'm always on your side. I love writing government checks that I cannot hide. Buying people's votes always turns the tide, 'cause every time I toe the line. The Oxford Dictionary Word Histories. The idiom toe the line, from an athletics analogy, originated in the early 19th century. I hope you don't watch these votes of mine. Hope you don't see through the lies and slime. 'Cause I plan on spending with your dime. 'Cause every time I toe the line. You know, toeing the line is what the folks down in Little Rock call progress.
PHP Parody. Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, so Joe, tomorrow on the program, we need to do a segment, and this was suggested to me, Ballotpedia, okay, the website Ballotpedia. You can go and look up past campaigns of different legislators, and so it's been suggested to me, if you want to know how deceptive some of these Republican legislators are, a la Jake Files, John Woods, or maybe others, they keep a record of campaign themes as they run, right? And so if you, we're going to do this, we're going to show this to you guys, we'll do a whole segment on it. Look at their campaign themes and look where Jake Files is, pleading guilty. You know, look where John Woods is, public corruption trial of Senator John Woods. My point is, these people use conservative language, and we don't even have to look at the ones who have been indicted or the ones pleading guilty or whatever. You could just look at the ones and what the legislation that they have supported, whether it's tax increases, whether it's more regulation, whether it's, you know, more obstacles to your Second Amendment rights. Like, we really need to look at what they have said in the campaign trail in terms of the themes that Ballotpedia has saved. These are going to be their website themes. These are going to probably be what were on your mailers or your postcards that went out. And contrast that to how these individual legislators have actually voted, what they've actually supported. I mean, it could be exhausting, but I think it could also be very interesting, specifically if you compare it to the races that are going to be run now during primary season. Whether it's Asa Hutchinson versus Jan Morgan and what Asa is going to say, how conservative he is and everything else. Whether it's Breanne Davis, who's going to claim she's a, conservative. And, of course, she's, I mean, come on. Let's just go. We should go look at what Michael Lamoureux's campaign themes were when he was running for office. And that should kind of tell you. And then look up their voting records, and you're going to find vast differences. They use the popular Republican Party platform to get elected, and then they get down there and they ignore it. And in some cases, they just do the complete opposite of what they said. Anyway, all right. So Brian King is running for re-election. Can we get an amen, somebody? Can we? But again, what would the lobbyists say? What is Asa Hutchinson? Asa Hutchinson just slammed Brian King in an article today, saying that he's irrelevant, essentially saying that his district is irrelevant. Because Brian King was actually trying to save the state money yesterday, and they shot down his proposal. And so then Asa says that he's irrelevant, but now he's running for re-election, and he was not going to run for re-election. Now he is. He's one of the most conservative people in the entire Senate. I don't know. Maybe Joe has said, so we had Jean-Luc Picard, in his no crash. But Joe says he thinks the lobbyists and the swamp in Little Rock, they have a different no this morning. And it's this. That would be the Darth Vader, which they added. That was not in the original, right? No. Oh, that's okay. So that's the. Hang on. Which one is that one? That's from episode 3 when. Okay, when he finds out that Padme is dead. Okay. But didn't they add in Return of the Jedi? Didn't they add a no or something when he throws the Emperor over the? Yes, they did. They added something. Google that. Seriously, Google that. Google that, Joe. They added. Darth Vader said something else in Return of the Jedi that George Lucas later added, and it ruined it because it was always really cool that Vader just is totally silent and just picks the Emperor up and throws him down the shaft, if you will. But then they later they added something. I know they did. If they didn't, then I'm calling Mandela effect on this. Anyway, so that's the news on Brian King and the lobbyists. I'm telling you, man, they're really upset on this. The swamp cannot stand Brian King, and that's all you need to know. That's a good thing. All right, what else do we have here? Oh, you know what? I want to give a shout out real quick. Of course, you got the River Valley Leader, which is a great website, and they've been carrying our show. They've been carrying the live stream of our show for a long time, but it was back when it was in the afternoons. I just want everybody to know at rivervalleyleader.com. They're also carrying the stream of the show now, and they've updated the site to where it is actually populating from 6 to 8 during that 2-hour period. So now that we're on in the mornings, rivervalleyleader.com is back up and running. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knows that, and that's a really, really a good website, by the way. The phone number is 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. 99. Joe, was I right or was I wrong? They did digitize something and add something, right?
They added a no in the Blu-ray copies of Return of the Jedi. I didn't know they added it.
You didn't know that, huh?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they did. So there we go. Oh, real quick, let's cue this up. We promised we'd get to this. Who also agrees with Asa Hutchinson? Let's see if you recognize this shrill voice.
I'm proud of Arkansas. I'm really proud of Arkansas because both Mike Beebe, the prior Democratic governor, now Asa Hutchinson, the current Republican governor, have been among the most creative leaders in the country to figure out how to expand Medicaid in Arkansas, to take care of more than 100,000 people last time I checked.
300,000.
And you know what that's meant? That's meant not only that people got health care, it's also meant that rural hospitals have stayed open that are closing in states that refuse to extend Medicaid.
Democrat talking point.
And I know it's a favorite issue on the Republican right, and I know how hard it is to try to do something as important as extending Medicaid. But I'm proud of Arkansas, and I go around bragging on this state because this was bipartisan. The Republican legislature had to approve it, and I am really supportive of what Governor Hutchinson is trying to do to make sure it stays here in Arkansas.
There you go, Hillary Clinton, ladies and gentlemen. Hillary Clinton is a Hutchinson supporter, and you could say by extension a Breanne Davis supporter. I mean, we do know Hillary voters who are voting for Breanne. We have internet proof of that. Folks, we'll see you tomorrow for Johnny Cash Friday. Send me your requests. Facebook.com/Conduit News. Be safe.